The day the music world stood still. On the morning of June 14, 2026, millions of people around the world woke up expecting an ordinary day. Some were heading to work, others were drinking coffee before school, many were scrolling through social media, checking the latest news. Nobody expected that one headline would soon dominate the internet. Reports began emerging from Rio de Janeiro about a tragic helicopter collision. At first, it seemed like another breaking news story that would quickly disappear from the headlines, but within hours, one name changed everything. Oliver Tree. Fans refused to believe it. The musician, known for his unforgettable appearance, unusual humor and chart-topping songs, was suddenly at the center of a tragedy that shocked people across the globe. Messages flooded social media. "Please tell me this isn't real. There has to be a mistake. This can't be happening." For many fans, disbelief came first. Acceptance would take much longer. Unlike most celebrities, Oliver Tree never followed the traditional path to fame. He wasn't trying to become another predictable pop star, he built his career by being different. While others carefully protected their image, Oliver often turned himself into the joke. He wore bizarre outfits, created strange videos, made people laugh. But behind the comedy was something much deeper. A musician who understood how to connect with people, someone who knew that authenticity mattered more than perfection. And that is exactly why millions of people felt connected to him. Years before sold-out concerts and viral hits, Oliver was simply a kid growing up in California. Music fascinated him from an early age. While many children changed hobbies every few months, his interest stayed. It grew stronger. He spent countless hours listening to different styles of music, absorbing influences from every direction. Rock, electronic music, hip-hop, alternative sounds, everything became part of his creative world. At the time, nobody knew those influences would eventually help create one of the most recognizable artists of his generation. This is the kind of rewrite that works well for YouTube because it feels like a completely different documentary rather than a translation. Part 2. The outsider who refused to fit in. As Oliver grew older, one thing became increasingly clear. He was never interested in being ordinary. Many young artists spend years trying to imitate their favorite musicians. They study successful performers, copy their style, and hope that doing so will bring them the same results. Oliver chose a different path. Instead of blending in, he stood out. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes naturally, but always unapologetically. At school and among friends, he often seemed to view the world from a different angle. While many people worried about fitting in, Oliver appeared more interested in expressing himself. That attitude would later become one of the defining characteristics of his career. Long before the fame, long before the millions of listeners, he was already developing the mindset that would eventually make him unique. Music was becoming more than just a hobby, it was becoming an obsession. Every free moment seemed connected to creativity, listening, experimenting, writing, learning, improving. Most successful artists have a period of life that nobody sees, a hidden chapter filled with mistakes and practice, a chapter where success feels impossibly far away. Oliver had that chapter too. There were no screaming crowds, no sold-out venues, no viral videos, just countless hours spent trying to become better, day after day, year after year. The reality of becoming a musician is far less glamorous than most people imagine. For every successful song, there are dozens that never work. For every breakthrough moment, there are months of frustration. For every opportunity, there are countless rejections. Oliver experienced all of it. Like many young artists, he faced uncertainty. There were moments when nobody knew his name, moments when success seemed distant, moments when giving up would have been easier. But he continued moving forward, not because success was guaranteed, but because creating music had become part of who he was. At the same time, another passion played an important role in his life: extreme sports, particularly scooter riding. For many people, that might sound surprising. Today, most fans remember Oliver primarily as a musician, but there was a period when he dedicated enormous amounts of time to riding and competing. The sport appealed to him for the same reason music did: freedom, creativity, risk, individuality. There were no strict rules about how to express yourself. You developed your own style, your own tricks, your own identity. In many ways, the mindset behind extreme sports mirrored the mindset behind his future career. As the years passed, Oliver began performing for larger audiences. The crowds were still small compared to what would come later, but every performance mattered. Each show taught him something: how to command attention, how to control a room, how to create an unforgettable moment. Many musicians simply perform songs. Oliver wanted to create experiences. Even during the early stages of his career, he understood that entertainment was about more than music alone. People remembered stories, people remembered emotions, people remembered surprises, and he intended to give them all three. One challenge followed him throughout those years. People often misunderstood him. Some thought his ideas were too strange. Others believed his personality would prevent him from reaching mainstream success. There were people who advised him to change, to become more conventional, to look more professional, to act more seriously, to stop being so different. For many young artists, those opinions would have been enough to force a change. But Oliver refused. He understood something important. If success required becoming somebody else, then it wasn't really success. That belief would shape every major decision he made. Slowly, things began to change. The audience grew. New opportunities appeared. Industry professionals started paying attention. People who had once ignored him were suddenly interested. His music was reaching larger groups of listeners, his performances were attracting attention, and perhaps most importantly, people were starting to remember him. In a world full of artists competing for attention, being memorable is incredibly valuable. Oliver wasn't just another musician, he was becoming a personality, a character, a presence, someone audiences could instantly recognize. Still, the road ahead remained uncertain. The music industry is filled with talented people who never achieve widespread recognition. Talent alone is rarely enough. Timing matters, luck matters, opportunity matters, and nobody could predict what would happen next. Not Oliver, not his friends, not his growing fanbase, not even the industry executives who were beginning to notice him. Because the biggest breakthrough of his life was still waiting around the corner. As social media platforms continued growing, a new era of entertainment emerged. Artists no longer depended entirely on traditional radio stations or television appearances. A single video could reach millions. A single song could travel around the world overnight. For creative people willing to take risks, the internet offered possibilities that had never existed before. Oliver recognized this opportunity, and he was perfectly suited for it. His creativity, his unusual humor, his unpredictable style, everything that once made him seem too different suddenly became an advantage. The internet rewarded originality, and originality was something he had in abundance. Looking back now, many fans describe this period as the moment everything began to come together. The years of experimentation, the unusual ideas, the refusal to follow expectations, the commitment to being himself. All of it was preparing him for the next stage. A stage that would transform him from a promising musician into a global phenomenon. Soon, millions of people would know his name. His videos would spread across the internet, his songs would reach listeners around the world, and his life would change forever. But before the worldwide fame, before the sold-out arenas, before the massive tours, there was one final step, the moment when Oliver Tree stopped being a rising artist and became a cultural phenomenon. And that is where the next chapter begins. To be continued in Part 3, The Rise of a Global Phenomenon.
Part 3. The Rise of a Global Phenomenon.
Success rarely arrives with a warning. Most people imagine a single moment when everything changes overnight. In reality, it often happens gradually. One video gains attention, one song reaches a larger audience, one performance gets shared online, then another and another, until suddenly millions of people know your name. That was exactly what happened to Oliver Tree. By the late 2010s, the internet had become one of the most powerful forces in entertainment. A single piece of content could travel across continents within hours. Artists who understood how to capture attention had an opportunity unlike anything previous generations had experienced. Oliver understood this better than most. He knew that standing out wasn't optional, it was necessary. Every day, audiences were bombarded with endless videos, songs, and advertisements. To survive in that environment, you had to be unforgettable. And unforgettable was exactly what Oliver became. At first, many people discovered him through his appearance, the oversized glasses, the unusual haircut, the colorful outfits, the strange sense of humor. Viewers often stopped scrolling simply because they had never seen anyone quite like him before. But then something unexpected happened. They stayed for the music. Behind the bizarre image was a genuinely talented artist. People who arrived expecting a joke often found themselves listening to the songs repeatedly. The melodies stuck in their heads, the lyrics connected emotionally, the production felt fresh, and before long, casual viewers became dedicated fans. As his audience grew, Oliver developed a reputation for doing the unexpected. No one ever knew exactly what he would do next. One day he might release a strange video, the next day he could surprise fans with a new song. Then come an unusual interview that left viewers laughing and confused at the same time. That unpredictability became one of his greatest strengths. People paid attention because they never knew what was coming. In an era where many celebrities carefully controlled every aspect of their public image, Oliver seemed completely comfortable embracing chaos. The numbers continued rising. Thousands of fans became hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands became millions. Streaming platforms showed increasing listenership. Social media accounts exploded in popularity. Videos accumulated enormous view counts. Every new release attracted more attention than the last. It was becoming impossible to ignore what was happening. Oliver Tree was no longer an underground artist. He was becoming a mainstream force. Yet, despite the growing fame, he remained fundamentally different from most pop stars. Many celebrities try to project perfection. Oliver often did the opposite. He leaned into awkwardness, into absurdity, into self-deprecating humor.
He made himself relatable by refusing to pretend he was flawless. That authenticity resonated with people. Fans felt like they were watching a real human being rather than a carefully manufactured celebrity. And in a world filled with polished public images, that honesty felt refreshing. As the audience expanded internationally, his music began reaching listeners far beyond North America. Fans appeared across Europe, South America, Asia, Australia. Songs crossed language barriers. Videos spread through social media algorithms. Concert announcements attracted attention in cities he had never visited before. For many artists, reaching a global audience takes decades. For Oliver, the process accelerated rapidly. The internet had turned him into an international name. Soon came larger venues, then larger tours, then larger expectations. Every performance attracted more people than the last. The atmosphere inside the venues became electric. Fans knew they weren't attending an ordinary concert, they were witnessing a spectacle. Oliver understood that entertainment wasn't just about singing songs, it was about creating moments people would remember, moments they would tell friends about, moments they would post online, moments that would stay with them long after the music stopped. Life on tour brought incredible opportunities, but it also brought pressure. Endless travel, long flights, different countries every week, interviews, rehearsals, meet and greets, late nights, early mornings, the schedule could be exhausting. Yet from the outside everything appeared perfect, the crowds kept growing, the music kept reaching new audiences, the momentum never seemed to slow down. During this period, many of his songs became deeply associated with people's personal memories. A student might remember listening to them during late-night study sessions, a traveler might connect them to a road trip across the country. Someone else might remember hearing them during a difficult chapter of life. Music has a unique ability to attach itself to human experiences, and Oliver's music became part of countless personal stories. That connection between artist and audience is difficult to measure, but it is often the reason why people remain loyal fans for years. As his popularity continued rising, journalists frequently asked a similar question. Who is the real Oliver Tree? Was he the comedian, the musician, the performer, the internet personality? The answer was complicated, because he was all of those things at once. His public image was layered, humorous on the surface, thoughtful underneath, entertaining yet surprisingly reflective. People could laugh at his videos one moment and connect emotionally with his music the next. That rare combination helped him stand apart from nearly everyone else in the industry. By the mid-2020s, Oliver had achieved something remarkable. He had transformed from a creative outsider into one of the most recognizable figures in modern music. Millions followed his career, millions listened to his songs, millions anticipated whatever he would do next. It seemed like the future held endless possibilities. More albums, more tours, more creative projects, more years of success. Very few people imagined anything different. Yet history often unfolds in unexpected ways. The future we assume is guaranteed can change in a single day. At the height of his career, with millions of fans around the world and countless opportunities still ahead, Oliver continued moving forward, working, creating, traveling, planning for what came next. He had every reason to believe the journey was far from over, and so did everyone around him.
But as 2026 approached, events were quietly moving toward a conclusion nobody could have predicted. A conclusion that would shock fans around the world. A conclusion that would transform celebration into mourning. A conclusion that would begin during what seemed like just another stop on a busy international schedule. To be continued in Part 4, The Final Journey.
Part 4. The Final Journey. By 2026, Oliver Tree had reached a level of success that many artists spend their entire lives chasing. His songs had been streamed billions of times. His concerts attracted enormous crowds. His unique personality had made him one of the most recognizable figures in modern music. To fans around the world, it seemed like he was entering another exciting chapter of his career. New projects were being discussed, future performances were planned, creative ideas continued to flow. Everything pointed toward a future filled with possibilities. But sometimes the most unexpected chapters begin during what appears to be an ordinary day. The first months of 2026 were busy, very busy. Travel became a constant part of life. Airports, hotels, concert venues, rehearsal spaces, meeting rooms, recording sessions. The cycle repeated week after week. For international artists, this lifestyle is normal, but normal doesn't mean easy. Even the most successful performers can feel the weight of endless schedules and constant movement. Still, Oliver continued doing what he loved most: creating, performing, connecting with audiences, making people laugh, making people think, making people feel something. Fans continued to follow every update, new photos appeared online, short videos were shared, behind-the-scenes moments gave people a glimpse into life on the road. To the outside world, everything seemed familiar, the same energy, the same creativity, the same personality that had attracted millions of followers over the years. Nobody saw any sign that tragedy was approaching, and that is what made the events that followed feel so impossible. As summer approached, part of his schedule brought him to South America. The region had always been home to passionate fans. Concert announcements generated excitement, social media filled with messages from people counting down the days until they could see him perform. Many had waited months for the opportunity. Some had traveled long distances, others had saved money for tickets. The anticipation was enormous. For countless fans, it was supposed to be a celebration, a chance to experience the energy and unpredictability that made Oliver's performances so memorable. Among the cities connected to the journey was Rio de Janeiro. Known for its breathtaking coastline, towering mountains and vibrant atmosphere, the city welcomed millions of visitors every year. Tourists came for the views, artists came for performances, photographers came for inspiration. The city itself seemed alive with movement. On the surface, it was just another stop on a busy international schedule. Nothing suggested that it would soon become linked to one of the most shocking stories in recent music history. The morning began quietly. People across the city went about their routines. Businesses opened, traffic filled the streets, tourists explored famous landmarks.
Somewhere else in the world, fans were sleeping, working, studying, or listening to music without the slightest idea that anything unusual was happening. Life continued as normal, at least for a little while longer. Then came the reports. Initially they were brief. A helicopter collision had occurred over part of Rio de Janeiro. Authorities responded. Emergency services were deployed. Information was limited. Most people paid little attention. Tragic accidents occasionally appear in news headlines headlines around the world. At first glance, this seemed like another unfortunate incident, nothing more. But as additional details emerged, the story began to change. Journalists worked quickly to gather information. Names had not yet been confirmed. Facts remained incomplete. Speculation spread online. Questions outnumbered answers. People searched for updates. News organizations raced to verify reports. Then one detail began appearing repeatedly. A name. Oliver Tree.
For many fans, the reaction was immediate disbelief. Surely there had been a mistake. Perhaps the reports were inaccurate. Perhaps someone had been misidentified. Perhaps the rumors would soon be corrected. The internet has seen many false celebrity death reports over the years. People hoped this would become another example. They waited for clarification, they waited for reassurance, they waited for confirmation that everything was fine. Instead, the opposite happened. As more information became available, hope slowly gave way to reality. The story was real, the accident had occurred, and Oliver Tree had reportedly been among those involved. Around the world, social media transformed almost instantly. Celebratory posts disappeared, conversations changed. Fans who had been discussing music only hours earlier were now trying to process devastating news. Shock spread rapidly, not because people knew Oliver personally. Most never met him, most would never have the chance.
Yet music creates unusual connections. A song can accompany someone through difficult years. A performance can become a treasured memory. An artist's work can become part of a person's life story. When that artist is suddenly gone, the loss feels personal. And for many people, it truly was. Throughout the day, tributes began appearing everywhere. Fans posted photographs from concerts. Videos from past performances resurfaced online. Favorite songs were shared repeatedly. People described the first time they heard his music. Others explained how his work helped them through difficult moments. The internet became filled with memories, not of an accident, but of a life, a career, a creative legacy. Meanwhile, investigators began the difficult task of understanding exactly what had happened. Questions remained unanswered. How did the collision occur? Could it have been prevented? What sequence of events led to the tragedy? These investigations would take time. Experts would analyze evidence, officials would examine every detail, but for millions of fans, the central reality had already become impossible to escape. One of modern music's most distinctive voices was gone. As night fell across different parts of the world, people turned to the same thing they always had – the music. Songs played through headphones, through speakers, through car stereos, through phones. For many listeners, those familiar tracks suddenly carried a different emotional weight. Lyrics felt different, melodies felt different, memories felt different. Because now every song represented something more than entertainment. It represented a connection to someone who had left a lasting impact on millions of lives. The story, however, was not over. In many ways, it was only beginning. Because after the headlines fade and the investigations conclude, something else remains. The memories, the influence, the legacy. And that final chapter would reveal why Oliver Tree's story did not end on the day tragedy struck.
Part 5. The legacy that refused to fade. When the first wave of shock began to settle, something remarkable happened. People stopped talking only about how Oliver Tree died. They started talking about how he lived. And in many ways, that changed everything. Because the story of a musician is never defined by a single day, not even the final one. A career is measured by the moments created, the people inspired, and the memories left behind. For Oliver, those memories stretched across continents, across generations, across millions of listeners. In the days following the tragedy, social media transformed into a giant collection of personal stories. Fans shared videos from concerts they had attended years earlier. Some uploaded blurry recordings taken from the back of crowded venues. Others posted photos they had kept on their phones for years. What seemed insignificant before suddenly became priceless. A smile during a performance, a funny moment during an interview. A brief interaction with a fan, tiny pieces of history that now carried enormous meaning. One of the most striking things was how many people felt connected to him despite never meeting him. That is the unusual power of music. A song can enter someone's life during a difficult period. It can become associated with important memories. A breakup, a graduation, a road trip, a fresh start. Years later, hearing the same song can instantly bring those emotions back. For millions of listeners, Oliver's music had become part of their personal timeline, and that connection did not disappear. Around the world, fans gathered in different ways. Some organized memorial events, others met online. Many simply spent time listening to the songs that had meant so much to them. The details varied from place to place, but the message remained the same. Thank you. Thank you for the music. Thank you for the creativity. Thank you for being different.
Thank you for reminding people that it was okay to stand out. As journalists looked back on his career, one theme appeared again and again: authenticity. Oliver never tried to fit perfectly into a predefined image of what a celebrity should be. He embraced his quirks, his humor, his unusual style, his unpredictability. What once seemed strange became his greatest strength. In a world filled with imitation, he built a career by being unmistakably himself. That lesson resonated deeply with fans, especially younger audiences searching for their own identity. Many artists become famous, far fewer become memorable. The difference is important. Fame can disappear, attention can fade, trends can change. But memorable artists leave something behind, a feeling, an influence, an idea. Oliver had done exactly that. Years from now, someone might discover one of his songs for the first time. They might know nothing about his career, nothing about the headlines, nothing about the tragedy. Yet the music will still have the power to connect. And that is what true artistic impact looks like. Music history is filled with examples of artists whose work continued long after they were gone. Their voices remain, their songs remain, their influence remains. The same is true here. Every recording, every performance video, every interview, every creative project becomes part of a lasting archive, a reminder of what was created during a lifetime of work. And that archive will continue reaching new audiences for years to come. As weeks passed, conversations gradually shifted. The headlines became less frequent. Breaking news gave way to reflection. Instead of focusing solely on the accident, people began celebrating achievements.
The unusual journey from a creative kid in California to a globally recognized artist, the willingness to take risks, the determination to stay original, the ability to combine humor and sincerity in a way few performers ever manage. These became the stories people wanted to remember. For many fans, one particular idea stood out. Oliver's career was built on refusing to become someone else.
Throughout his life, there were easier paths available, safer choices, more conventional approaches. He could have followed expectations, he could have blended in. Instead, he chose individuality again and again. That decision shaped everything that followed. It shaped the music, the performances, the image, the connection with fans, and ultimately it shaped the legacy he left behind. Years from now, many details of 2026 may fade from public memory. People may forget specific headlines, they may forget exact dates, they may forget many of the discussions that followed. But they will remember the songs, because songs have a way of surviving long after news stories disappear. A melody can outlive an entire generation. A lyric can remain meaningful decades later. That is why music often becomes a form of immortality, not in a literal sense, but in the sense that a person's creative voice continues speaking long after they are gone. Imagine someone discovering Oliver Tree's music 20 years from now. Perhaps they stumble across an old video online. Perhaps a friend recommends a song. Perhaps they hear a track playing somewhere unexpectedly. They press play, the music starts, and for them the story begins all over again. That listener won't be experiencing the past, they will be experiencing the music in the present. And that means the connection continues, the influence continues, the legacy continues. In the end, that may be the most important part of this story, not the tragedy, not the headlines, not the final journey, but the impact left behind, the laughter, the creativity, the inspiration, the music. Because while a life can end unexpectedly, the effects of that life often continue far beyond the final chapter. And for millions of people around the world, Oliver Tree's story did not end on a single day in June. It lives on in playlists, in memories, in concert videos, in shared experiences, and in the songs that continue to play every time someone presses a simple button. Play. The end.